All right, welcome to the Wednesday edition of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. We are still up on Studio A temp, so just for all you listeners out there, radio is not always easy. That all of us work pretty hard. It can be pretty complicated. For example, I produce my own show. I do have help from behind the scenes, which is I'm super grateful for. Our team has, especially the management, has really stepped up to the plate and really working super hard to keep our station up. And but sometimes you have to make adjustments. So if we don't get the hosts don't make it on air at the right time, and sometimes we don't make the commercials at the right time or come back, it's because times change up, and it could be like 30 seconds off, it could be 2 minutes, because timing is just kind of changes periodically. So hang in there with us. We're trying to move forward and keep everything afloat while we do that. So you're listening to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, for the next 2 hours. You can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and click on the Support Us. You can find all kinds of amazing things to do to actually help support us that can benefit you in several different ways. I do advertising, healthcare by Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, holistic and alternative healthcare, and so I have an advertising banner on our website. We get a lot of people hitting up our website. We are the oldest, I believe, online radio network. I think we've been on for 11 years, maybe, who knows, something like that. And we're one of the last networks out there that are, if you want to call them truther or First Amendment, or, whatever your, language is going to be around that. But we're one of the last ones. So, and, because we're not paid off corporate, thugs bringing disinformation, we don't have, financial support backing us. So in order to continue to bring you like really good, knowledgeable, educated, in some cases, scientific information, or just, basic conversations that we have on Revolution Radio, then please, please, please find a way that you can support us. It would really be helpful. Also, while you're at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, you can actually check out Studio A on the schedule. Scroll down, see the bee flying towards the flower, click on that thumbnail, and there's a back page. And you can find information about me and kind of the basic foundation of the show, and also links that you can use to contact me if you want. All right, so my guest was not able to make it today, and hopefully we'll have her back on. She's a return guest, and she just got some stuff going on. But the cool news is that I sent her over to Brilliance and Commerce, and so they're actually helping her with all of the situation that she needs to deal with. So it's super good. Another person moving out of the corporation world. Love it. Okay, so I have been trying to figure out like what I want to talk about, because sometimes we're just kind of thrown out there and into the muck. And so I'm just trying to decide, like, what might be a good kind of avenue or topic. This morning I woke up and there was just a huge amount of coal ash spray in the sky. And because of the, light, that it wasn't like completely bright out, you could really see it clearly. So I did a video on my YouTube channel for it because I wanted to send it over to Mike Morales. I would really like to, I know he's super busy, but he has a really great geoengineering, I think it's called Above Ground World News YouTube channel, and every night he puts out a video for like an hour and shows facts and lectures, and they go look at the satellites, and they cover the globe looking at all of the different spray that's going on. And so he's doing super good work. Also, my friend Dane Wigington is always doing good work. I support Dane 100%. I know that he has been, under attack, but I support him 100%. He is one of the best, men I have ever known. And so his integrity, um, to me, is invaluable. But he has geoengineeringwatch.org, and they put up all kinds of stuff. I think him and his group are the only ones that are actually suing countries, because they have actually spotted and found the exact locations of where many of these chemtrail planes are coming out of. And I know Dane, I think it's been going on 3 years so far, but Dane and his attorneys and all their group, doctors and scientists, they're all involved with a lawsuit with Canada out of British Columbia, where they have located most of the planes that do the aerosol spraying, because the West Coast gets more aerosol spraying than anywhere else. I even talked to Dr. Lenny about this on Mona's show on yesterday, Monday, and he said, so far he's been crossing the country for, almost 3.5 months, I think, did he say? But he said that, you know, the area that he's crossed over, there's nothing like that we have on the West Coast, where they have like the crisscross, graph. It looks like graph paper in the sky. And he said that there's nowhere else basically that's happening. So, but they, had located where the main planes are spraying over the West Coast, the heavy spraying, and that they were coming out of an area in British Columbia. So they located all that and found it. So now they've been suing, Canada, and I'm not really sure how that lawsuit's going on, but I know Dean Wigington has, I think he has a YouTube channel. Like I said, you go to his website, geoengineeringwatch.org, and you will find more than enough valuable information. Also, too, I'm really excited. Yeah, so it kind of started out bummed out today because of the coal ash spray. I did a video to send to Mark Morales, because if he likes to present, the average person's, videos to show people on his show, of different areas, because it's global, and we need to all talk about, the issues that are happening. And and then things kind of have shifted today a little bit, and I it's like it's so hard to, stay focused for like the whole course of a day, or it's not that I feel like, for me, people talk about the timeline and everything speeding up. And maybe it's because of the shamanism type work, that I've been doing my entire life, and pretty heavily since, I had brain cancer. But my, time for me is slowing down. It's getting slower and slower and slower, but there's also this trigger post-traumatic stress disorder information highway, and you have 3 kinds of information, and you have different things that are happening during the course of the day, but it's really hard to hold a certain kind of feeling. I try to do that in a mindset, for the course of the day, to try to start my morning in a way that I can be calm and effective for the entire course of the day. And so, I mean, this morning I've already been kind of on a, yo-yo roller coaster, and it just kind of happens that way. You have to balance yourself back out. But then, I've had some hope. So there's been some information that's coming forward. And also, I wasn't able to actually post this video all over. And I don't want to put the guy on radio because I don't have his permission to put him on radio. But a friend of mine who is also in the big, common law movement, on the Florida, Ken Scott, who I've had on the show, and we've helped, you know, worked with him, you know, with paperwork and different things in the recent past. But I have him on Facebook. He's amazing to follow. He's putting out all kinds of, you know, just really grand, good information. And he's on the battlefield down there in Florida, which is also, you know, one of those locations, which is like the home of the cabal, just like Nevada. Um, and then, so anyway, he sent me a video, a private video, where the guy, um, where the guy, where the guy was talking about basically the power outages that were down in California and why the power outages were that went out. And he came on. He's kind of being a spokesperson for Pentagon officials, sort of. I mean, he could only say so much. He couldn't tell everything piece by piece. He was asked not to, but he was allowed to put out some basic information. Um, and he also this information came from his commander in the Pentagon, who has been heading up this. Um, I'm not sure what you would call it in military, but what happened was that they turned off all the power for 7 days or several days in California to find the underground facilities where they are extracting adrenochrome. And if you're not sure about what adrenochrome is, adrenochrome can, you know, it comes in two functions, either the actual adrenals or blood. Either way, it's a hot commodity. I even noticed that I found information that doctors were actually prescribing it, like maybe in the late 80s and early 90s. I actually found some evidence that doctors, here we go again with doctors. I'm sorry, but I just really hate you guys because of your licensing and that you're the doc attendants and the whole, you know, reason why all this insanity is going on. Um, but anyway, there was proof that I found that there were actually doctors, and found a few blogs and stuff of doctors that had written some early internet stuff, being really proactive as using adrenochrome for medicine. And it, and you know, why I would be open to this kind of information is when I had brain cancer, and I was treating it completely alternatively. My brain cancer was in my pituitary. So I could look at an apple and literally gain 20 pounds. My whole hormonal system was so jacked up. I think I even went through a period where I didn't even sleep for 6 months. And just, you know, the blackouts and just all kinds of just vomiting all the time, physical pain. You know, it was pretty intense for about 5 years. And I wasn't even sure. It always cracks me up because people will say, well, I guess you really, really thought positively. No, I didn't even have the ability to think positively for 5 years. Once the blackout started and it was game on, full brain cancer, stage 4, stage 5, I literally was living moment to moment. And it was like, you know, how can I get myself to the bathroom right now? You know, how can I get comfortable right now, because of the migraines, the physical pain, the whole nervous system, hormonally off, and whatever else. So, I mean, some days I'd have vertigo so bad that I'd literally have to pull myself over to a wall and then stand up, and then slide myself down the wall to get to the bathroom. So wherever I landed when the rough spells hit is probably where I would be for at least, you know, 24 hours to 48 hours. So um, when I was going through that period, I was doing a lot of stuff. I was getting, you know, a lot of underground kind of medicines that are non-Western medicine that, you know, come from places like Germany and India, and, you know, and they're non-invasive medicines. They don't hurt you. And, I was doing the macrobiotic diet as well on top of it all. And I was taking a lot of IP6 came out, which is actually super boosts your white blood cell count. I've even had friends of mine years ago that, when they'd get cancer, I'd buy them a case of it. And that, if they chose to go through chemo, they would take it and they'd never have low white blood cell counts. And doctors were flipped out and amazed, like, how strong their bodies were. And then, when they take the IP6 in and show it to them, because it's derived from rice, white rice. Basically, it's just heavy amounts of it. But yeah. So anyway, but during that time frame, I had some people present me some thyroid tissues and also pituitary gland tissues. And some of them that I took when I was really off to kind of help put the right hormones and balance those, glands to kind of help straighten me out, because those glands had gotten so far off base that they didn't even know where the ballpark was, where they would have to kind of go back to or restore themselves or regenerate. So we were using the tissue. And so early on, I was taking tissue from pigs for the thyroid. So it was, flash frozen, dried, flash dried or whatever. And then you just take like a little bit of it and it would really help to kind of balance things out. And then I did take on a few occasions some, and I didn't take these to get high. I took these so that my glands, we're giving the glands, information from glands on how to actually help and restore themselves. And it would really help. So I didn't take them to get high or anything or crazy. I guess it was mild cannibalism, but it was for a totally different purpose other than adrenochrome. So when people ask me if I think adrenochrome, is possible, it's like totally, because in medicine, I've eaten and taken in, different, pituitary and thyroid tissues. I mean, mine weren't fresh. They weren't, bloody. They were, dehydrated. And so I totally believe that people could eat, large, even whole adrenal glands from a small child that has been pumped up with the worst possible fear of their lives. And that's what happens is that, I guess, when you terrify somebody almost to death or to death, because usually, the torture that they inflict to get the adrenochrome, the blood and the adrenals jacked up, usually results in death. And then, yeah, it's pretty scary. And there's also a belief system that I have, just because I've been heavily in the food industry and also medicine for a long time, and different kinds of medicine, worked with lots of different people in different fields of medicine. I totally believe without a shadow of a doubt that these people take, babies and stuff, I think and this is a really harsh kind of conversation, but it's a conversation that people need to have. But, like infants and babies would be, they have really soft bone tissue. It's more like cartilage. So, I mean, literally, it would be much easier for them to eradicate a body. They could put it actually in a meat grinder and grind up the bone and everything else and serve it up as meat. And I believe that there are a lot of fast food restaurants, because of, not because of what I've read on the internet, but it's still standing that in cases in the past, when the meat has been tested from places that are fast food, there's been up to 11%. Now, if you think like some of those places sell how many, 3 billion hamburgers a year, easily could get rid of human body, because where else would they be putting them? I mean, and we know that they, I saw this video that got sent to me from Syria that really, 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 really was tough on me. And it was somebody video cameraed it, and they were showing like all the bombing, and then they were showing these weird little, medical labs where there's this bombing stuff going on, and the kids would get lost from the parents, or the parents would get blown up, and they'd actually take these little kids, and they're talking to them, and they're getting them into this medical thing, to give them medical attention. The kids are terrified and they're screaming, and you watch them, put them onto the table, and the kids are like struggling, and then they put like a mask on them, and they put them to sleep, and they remove the organs from the children. I mean, not only could we say, they're destroying a lot of stuff that's probably some of the most ancient, areas and sites, so that they're eradicating, history over there in the Middle East, but they're also doing, huge amounts of human trafficking, and human trafficking in children. And, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who actually saw this video too, from this guy from the Pentagon. And I was showing them, and I said, I mean, I think it's something like 800. You can go on and look this up on the internet, how many missing children annually. And I looked it up like 3 years ago, and it was like almost 800,000 children were going missing each year in the United States. Well, where do they go? Where are their bodies? I mean, 800,000 is a huge amount. To get rid of, any anything that has to do with the person's body and whatever else. I mean, it's just like a huge amount that's happening, and so how many people, how many children is it globally? I mean, it's just like, I mean, how can you refute that humans have become probably other humans and other, beings food? I mean, it's like kind of irrefutable at this point. We're their drug, we're their, food, we're their, traffic their body parts, for surgeries and stuff like that, for transplant. I mean, it's like, how can we refute that we're not cattle? I mean, at this point, I mean, like, it's just incredible. Like, people just don't want to even, like, I guess it's just so difficult for them to deal with the fact that probably their governments and, their medical, and their legal, their, this, that, and the other thing are involved with this. It's just incredibly just insanity that. And then if you want to talk about, any of these kinds of subjects, let's talk about them. We can talk about them without fear. We can talk about them without, doom and gloom. We can just have a conversation where people don't get freaked out about stuff and get all triggered. And then they just totally, shove it underneath the rug, and never deal with it or never talk about it again. And I mean, if you heard that, people were using adrenochrome, and then you found out what adrenochrome was, I don't know how you could ever go back to the life you were living. I just don't even really understand how that works. I mean, one of the biggest reasons I do radio, and, I do a lot of the work that I'm doing, is because I'm conscious of, what is going on. And yeah, does it bend me over? Sometimes it totally bends me over. There are times where I get so bent over, I don't think I'm going to get back up. But then I process it, I look into it, I research it. And then, I try to go out into the world and try to educate in a non, fear-based way, by just, talking about what's going on. I don't have to get like riley, jacked up. But if we don't all start having a conversation about what is going on, it's just going to keep escalating. I mean, I just love that, other than the US, that there are, like the stuff in Hong Kong, like they keep trying to put stuff on the people of Hong Kong. And they knew that this was going to happen. I remember when I was traveling to Canada for a long period of time, up there, I was working up there doing, energy, energy methods of, medicine, like healing, hands-on healing and education and things like that. And so I had clients up there, but they knew, I think it was what, 1999 when Hong Kong went back to China, from part of the UK. And there was huge conversations in Canada about, the rioting and the political unrest because, the Hong Kong, had been kind of free and kind of on a global market and part of the global, things that were going on, and that if it got pulled into China, and that's why at first they didn't try to really rope them in, but now you're really starting to see a huge play for China to really get Hong Kong under control. And you can see how there's been enough people in generations that know what it's like not to be under that control, and that they're fighting for their lives because they know that their lives depend on it. Like they can't just, sit down and forget about it and be exhausted because they got to fight until they win, until they establish themselves, as the sovereign nation that they should be, without having rulership, or control, domination. And so, like I really applaud them, for fighting a fight that I don't think most Americans could even imagine, don't have the stomach for, and will never probably do to even save their own lives, which is a pretty sad event. But anyway, so back to this video. Sorry, this is kind of heavy talk for the morning, so don't out me, don't get mad at me, but for a Wednesday morning. But this is what happens when, I don't have a guest. So, okay, the video. So it was sent to me. It was a private video sent to me on Facebook from other people that I'm involved with, and working with. And it was a friend of theirs. The guy was, I don't know exactly, he states his name in the video, but he says that he's talking in behalf basically of his contacts in the Pentagon, and one of them is his commander, and that his commander has been heading up this unit to deal with pedophiles and large, I guess, holding areas where they have trafficked children. And so in the video, he basically says that he can't, really tell everybody all the information. He can only provide what his commander, deems as general kind of information. And he goes on to say that the military turned off the power in California so that it could see where, light may be coming from underground, being able to sense it, and using heat surveillance. And they found, they don't really say how many underground bunkers they found, but what he did say was that they rescued 2,100 children out of, he doesn't use, I don't know if it was one underground bunker or several. And he said that this is going to continue until, as many children have been recovered. And these underground, and he called them adrenochrome laboratories, where they are housing the stolen children, abducted children. And he said that when he asked about, like what it looked like or what was going on with it, or, how bad it was, he said that one of the top officials told him that that it reminded him of the horror movie It, with the killer clowns and stuff in it, because of, how they had to terrify these children, literally to death, to then extract their adrenals and then extract their blood for market. So yeah, I heard that, and I probably spent about 3 days bent over. And then, my first thought is like, I get a lot of grief from a lot of my friends, especially, ones that are in the education system, especially college, and their beliefs about what news is real and not real, and they never, they're very confrontational. They'll even be confrontational on me on Facebook when I post things about things like this that are going on, and they'll, make me sound like I'm stupid and illiterate and like I shouldn't be listened to. um, and so I can get, you know pretty severely abused by people by just trying to present facts, and they're not willing to look into the facts. And even if they do see a number of like 800,000 children missing in the US a year, they'll try to figure out how to debunk that, put it into percentages, and then, categorize it, and, like all kinds of ways to diminish, 800,000 children going missing. It's interesting how we can use, the power of deduction in a not so helpful way, um, to, minimize the situation. I mean, people, 800,000, I mean, even if there was like 50, you know, 3,000 children being abducted a year in the United States, I don't understand why that's not a priority. It seems like pets, for some reason, dogs and all this, and animals these days, are getting more help than children. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm so glad that animals, especially dogs who are being just tortured and abused, are being saved and rescued. And a lot of these, places that do these kinds of things, the animals are being shut down. I'm super grateful for that. But I think that, children are kind of the lost area, that we really need to like focus in on and really save. And because, you know, post-traumatic just, distress events can end up emotionally causing genetic mutations, and can go on and also create, a DNA mutation, if it's severe enough, which, will, um, go on to, replicating and becoming something that's hereditary in the next offspring. So even if those events didn't happen to the offspring, they will grow up as with the behavior, uh, that those kinds of things happen. And I remember having a really great conversation with a psychology friend of mine who was totally out of the box. She actually, this is going to be really far out there for people, but for quite a long time we were in being colleagues. And we also worked with another person, who also was part of our little group, and we helped patients, together, or helped clients together. I did a lot of the structural and the energetic work, and nutrition, and then they would do, a lot of the other type of psychological type work, that was necessary. So, but, I talked to her about it at one point, and she said, sometimes it's hard to figure out. Oh, by the way, she did people who were walk-ins, um, walk-ins that were having trouble with their bodies, and also having trouble with all of the people that are around the body that have a relationship with that body, when they came in. And so having to try to help them. So I know it sounds pretty out there, but it was pretty true. It's how I ended up working with her, because I had a whole bunch of, I've always been kind of a really paranormal kid, with constant abilities, and, just a lot of things that have happened to me in my life, and, potential kidnapping, especially by NASA. Um, and I really needed to go to somebody who I could, I worked with her for 10 years, just on the different things that I was dealing with, that I really couldn't talk to people in the outside world about. They just, nowadays, a lot of this stuff has come out and it's pretty normal, but, for years it wasn't, when I was growing up. And so anyway, but she said, like she can get a lot of different people into her practice who have the behavior of somebody who's been sexually abused. And it takes a while to uncover their history, and sometimes lots of different methods to just be sure that the abuse didn't happen to them. Um, but she said that she has had lots of patients who carry out, the shock and trauma and how they participate in the outside world just by being, genetically, you know, mutated in a mutant way, with a lot of the memories and other things that can happen as well. But it didn't happen to them. It happened to, say, their mother, you know, a long time before they were born or whatever else. So these things kind of happen. So the thing is, like, if we're not, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine about, you know, what are we going to do? I mean, how in the heck are we going to help these 2,100 kids that desperately, and how do you find their parents? I mean, how do you, I mean, some of these children are probably pretty mutilated, you know, like scarred. I mean, they're not, even if you did like some kind of, you know, age enhancement on what they look like, um, now, or what they would have looked like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be like a major, like, unbelievable endeavor. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like just a major thing ahead of these children, and, you know, people getting in there and, you know, trying to give them the love that they need and the help that they need, and all of those types of things. And I'll just put it out here on radio that if anybody's involved with, you know, the healing processes of those children, and people coming in to actually help them, you know, I have experience, and, you know, I would greatly, you know, even volunteer my time to help in rehabilitating these children, you know, as much as possible, or just being there on the ground just to help provide, you know, kindness and love, and whatever else that needs to happen. So I would definitely help in whatever possible way that I could. So I'm just putting it out there. Okay, so do your research on what's going on with children, um, and do your research deep, and, you know, get out there on the battlefield. Let's, you know, get some stuff done. Let's make some changes. Let's work together, um, and, you know, just gotta pull your head right out of the sand. It's going to be tough. It can be tough. It can be like death. It can be like a physical death, like you're dying. But just get through it. Ride it out. Ride that emotional wave, and come out the other side, and, you know, get your boots on, and let's get her done. Okay, so I have a few more minutes left on this part of the hour. So let's see what else I could talk about. I'd like to talk about the crazy mosquitoes. This year, I spent a lot of time outdoors in Grass Valley camping, for about like a week, for my herbal medicine, national herbal medicine certification. And so I did quite a bit of camping, and I can't even begin to tell you like how savage the mosquitoes were this year, like in Northern California, Reno type area. Like a totally different savage breed of mosquitoes. And the other thing too about them that are a lot different is that they sting, even when they start biting you. Like, you'll notice it right away, and then you get like some pretty hard lumps. And then I was getting some, you know, pretty good scabbing as well. I took a lot of, I'd pump up with like colloidal silver and just a whole bunch of other stuff before I would go. So even if I did get eaten, which I usually always did, you know, I was good to go, or at least as best that I could. And I would see like 3 mosquitoes piled up on one spot, attacking you, and they'd like literally attack your face. They weren't like flying slow. And they would literally, you know, if you were trying to swat them away, they would just keep coming towards that area. And it's like you're having to like battle the savage mosquito. And the other thing too is shocking that they were so big. And then even in Reno, I mean, you know, we've been cold, and some of them have been, you know, getting into areas, you know, where I'm sleeping, and literally eat the, you know, crud out of me. And it's even going on like even last night. I had to get up and battle several of them, and it's been cold and they're not really dying off like they should be dying off, and they're super aggressive and they're getting more and more aggressive. And I think, we're dealing with, where they're, leashing or unleashing, different types of genetically modified, I mean, bees. And, this is the thing, is bees are accepted. If you're looking at monoculture beekeepers, they prefer to buy those, genetically modified queens instead of actually, harvesting a queen from, with a swarm, which makes them native bees. And then you give them a home, and then that queen will produce, more of a native bee. And then she'll get thrown out and half of her swarm will go with her. So every 2 years, they, produce a new queen that takes over that colony, and then the old queen will get kicked out and she will go, swarm, and half of the crew will leave with her, and then they'll find a new place, and then, in 2 years they'll build it up, and then in 2 years, she'll get kicked out, or, however it goes. It goes, something like that. But now they're producing like genetically modified bees. And so there are a lot of businesses who are happy, to deal with monoculture farming of using their bees. And also, so, why not genetically modified mosquitoes? We've seen a lot of, well, go online and look at a lot of the mechanical mosquitoes that they're trying to put out. These ones aren't so much metallic or metal. I know the difference. I've seen the difference between, regular, biological insects to, the mechanical ones. But I think these mosquitoes definitely in this area are like super, genetically modified, because they are just so unbelievably savage, and just they're, mosquitoes sucked before, but they've gone up to another level. I can see, that these things probably could carry lots of just really, really, awful, bad stuff. So people have to, take care, and don't spray that, petrochemical, DEET and all those mainstream mosquito sprays on yourself. Those things are terrible. They go into your bloodstream, cause cancer, breathe it in, cause cancer, skin cancer on your skin wherever they're sprayed directly, lower your, severely lower your white blood cell count. And then, you can get really sick if you don't have a if your white blood cell, you can die. If your white blood cell, get low enough, you can just, drop dead. So, be careful of all the petrochemical plastic products, because it's all the same thing in your environment. That's a whole other thing. You think about shoes, clothing, underwear, bras, everything, hats, coats, your bed, your bedding, flooring, most of your car is plastic and petrochemical. It's all the same. They don't refine the oil. It's not like they take the oil out of the ground and then they strip it of all the heavy metals and toxic poisonings, to human life. They don't do that. And then they just turn it into whatever the byproduct of that they want it to be, right? So whether they want it to be your shoes or your socks or your underwear or your bras, or they use it as, in products. And you know what? Oh, people put petrol right out of the ground, pretty much. It's called mineral oil. And they like to slather the stuff all over their babies, because, that's what you should do, because you want to keep your baby's skin soft. So what do? You bathe them in some of those, what do they call them? The ethanols. So yeah, and they use like corn, genetically modified corn, which has total poisons and pesticides in it. And they make it into different type of ethanol products. that, yeah, they love to put those in baby products too. So that stuff is, more of an alcohol type base, and it will be absorbed right into the skin right away, pulled right into the bloodstream, starts the process of the infant going down cancer land, just like the mineral oil. Or in a lot of cases too, if they survive that, then, that sunlight will, from that, stuff being on the outside of their body, will also help to cause radical skin cancer. And then our beds are off gassing. It's all petrochemical. And we spend how many hours in the bed? So, as soon as you make plastics from petrochemicals, they start to break down immediately. And, like I have friends of mine that have like new cars and stuff. I can't even get in them. And they get a film when the plastics and stuff start breaking down in the car. They actually get these film on the windows from the off gassing of the plastics in the car. It just shocks me, like the stuff, they're trapped. I mean, cars have become like these toxic waste dumps, because you also have all the microwave radiation, the GPS, the Bluetooth, the talk on your phone, on your stereo, the video, movie technology that's in them, the OnStar, the this, that, and the other thing. So you end up with like 15 devices on your car. What does that make your car? It makes it a microwave oven, right? I mean, the base bottom line is it's a microwave oven. What's a microwave oven do? It cooks, changes the molecular structure of everything that you put in there. And then, metal. Metal has a very strange relationship with microwave radiation. And so you're wearing earrings and necklace, and you have metal in your teeth. And, your seat that you're sitting on has metal in it. You're probably, holding onto a steering wheel that has, metal in it. Maybe have some barrettes on your head. You maybe even have steel-toed shoes, so you got some metal. So think about how that microwave radiation is going to react with, your body, because that metal is on your body. And think about like in your house, like in apartment buildings. And I've had Mark Steele on. Everybody, I think it's called saveusnow.org. And he talks about how the danger, well, Wi-Fi and 5G are microwave military radiation weapons. He said, without a doubt. He is an inventor of technologies for militaries to protect their guys on the battlefield against other countries using military grade microwave weapons. And so he said, that's what 5G is. That's what this Wi-Fi is, 4G. It's not for communication. It's actually for genocide. And he talks about a lot about how all these devices in the areas that you're in, each device ups the ante. So what if your cell phone says, so many blah, 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 blahs that you can be exposed to like on a daily basis? That doesn't include the cell phone actually touching your head or your face, doesn't include the Bluetooth. It doesn't include your computer. It doesn't include your smart thermostat. It doesn't include all the smart meters in your location and on your home or in your buildings. It doesn't include, all these other, the blue LED lights. It doesn't include all of that, because the blue LED lights that they're putting up all over has, they have antennas, and then they have multiple ports to actually apply technologies in. So they can put small cameras in there, they can put all these different kinds of things in those technology, in those street lights. I just found out recently that Sierra Pacific Power here in northern Nevada is changing out all the analog lights all over all over the place, and is replacing them with the LED blue lights. So now every LED blue light is going to have its own Wi-Fi 5G unit, and then it'll have its antenna. So just driving down a highway, several times will cause retinal degeneration, and that's when you fart. Oops, was that a Freudian slip? Fart. That's how you find out if it kind of like how I look at the level of people's exposure when they can start to notice it physically. Number one, they don't really sleep that much anymore. Always woken up like in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock. Toss and turn, have a lot of anxiety, panic, and retinal degeneration. Their sight starts to go like really, rapidly downhill. Because that's the number one thing that a lot of the smart devices cause is retinal degeneration, from your computer to your smart thermostat to your, smartphone to your cell phone, to a lot of these other things. Um, so yeah, it's kind of crazy. I was watching that movie. Um, oh, the just totally lost it. I can see all the actors and everything in it. It has, where a lot of people have seen the movie. It has where the powers that be in the movie. There were also the movies were novels, and the powers that be, they dress up kind of in a gluttonous, French way. They got the wigs and the lipstick, with modern clothing. And it's projected into the future. Just trying to remember the name. And so because the people did an uprising on the elites, they torture them by taking, a girl and a boy from every county or area, and then they have them, fight to the death to kill each other. And it was interesting, because we've had the Truman Show, all these other kinds of movies, the Matrix, and I think that they are showing kind of like an extreme on in the environment. So they have a computer sky in the movie where they put up the information and talk to them, and they watch them battling it out, killing each other. Then they copy paste these things into their environment, deploy these things into their environment. And I was thinking about like that's like a contained smart system. That's kind of like the holodeck, right? In what is that, Star Wars, the holodeck, where you push some buttons and then you create this experience. And more it seem like that's kind of like what they're doing. When I was a kid. Oh, we're at commercial. I'll be right back. Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. Be right back. All right, everybody. All right, so back to I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. Today, you only have to withstand one more hour of me today, because sometimes I just don't really have like a topic when I have guests that have to cancel so at the last minute. So I'm not prepared. So I just try to do the best that I can possibly do. And that is just keep yakking about stuff that, is on my mind that I think is important, that doesn't really always come out about my guests. There are some conversations you don't have because, if I invite somebody on, I want them to talk about their stuff and what they're doing and what's going on with them and, their perceptions. So you're listening to Caring Stone Digging Holes radio show on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You can go and check out our support us link, and figure out ways that you can support our network because we are 100% listener supported and we do all of this for you. And we really would like to keep our network going. We would really like to keep our station going. And we are committed to doing that. So please support us in that. And we have advertising. I tell people I have healthcare by Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, holistic alternative healthcare online. Also, people, you can make an appointments with me. I specialize in types of nutrition. I'm pretty excited because it looks like I'm going to be working with the National Biodynamic Association, and doing some work with them. And I'm looking at teaching some short webinars with them, with biodynamic farming and just other kind of, practices and education and study. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I do a lot of consulting around land restoration, especially soil, making medicines, teach people how to make medicine on location, working with plants, to actually help plant into the soil. Native seeds, I'm involved with the native seed movement. I also, have been basically a traditional osteopath for close to 30 years, working on people. I do energetic and structural medicine. I specialize in nutrition that most people haven't even gone there yet. And also herbalism. I'm an herbalist now. So I call myself the pharmacist, the FARM, ACY, or pharmacy versus the PH one, pharmacist. So yeah, I do all my, I also do shamanism type healing and consulting for shamanism. I have worked with some CEOs of major companies and behind closed doors help them to steer their company in a different direction, and in some cases have gone there and checked out energies and actually help CEOs move from one facility to another, helped with finding facilities that would actually benefit them in the long run, to create a business that is making the turn to, I don't know, you want to call it green or sustainable, with a shamanism basis of foundations, to actually work for all the people and everything that those companies relate to. I also do shamanism type healing, and you can find me on my website, which is coe-llc.com. And then I also have another website called the Ministry of Consciousness Nevada.org. And that site needs some help. I haven't given it any tender loving care for about 3 years. So I just need to have a little bit more time, so that I can, sit down and kind of update a lot of these websites with new information. But I do a lot online, Zoom. People can make appointments. I have clients all over the globe that I have a, Zoom meeting video appointments with, for, lots of different things that I do, or just a few things that I do. So anyway, you can book an appointment with me if you like. And you can use consciousness of economics at gmail.com. if you want to contact me. Plus, if you go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and you see the schedule link, you click on that, you click on Studio A. You can scroll down. I have my show, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes, has an edition on Wednesday and Saturday. You're listening to the Wednesday edition, noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Scroll down, click on the bee with the flower, and it'll bring you to a back page, and it has information and links and, ways to contact me. Also, I do accept donations as well for my land work, because a lot of times I don't get paid to go out and travel and help people to do, land restoration work and soil restoration work, which I think is probably one of the most important things that we could actually be doing right now, is rebuilding the soil with new microbial mass, and it's stuff that I've been working on and developing. And it has to be local. We have to do these things kind of local where we're at. So anyway, that's all of that. So so I remembered, so this is the second hour of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. And so my guest couldn't make it. She had kind of an emergency, which is fine. So I'm, rambling on about some of the more darker things, I guess, this show, that are going on in our world. So at the end of the last hour, I was talking about these crazy, like biological, mosquitoes. And so I remembered what the movie was. It was The Hunger Games. But in that movie, the first one, they show these crazy waspy things that, they go into, or, genetically, like modified, and, they're made by the computer system for the system, and that they can deliver, like just as much poison, and how the sky is like a computer screen, and that they, control everything that's going on. I think that they do that now. I have seen things that I am pretty sure Men in Blacky stuff are totally copy pasted into this reality. They got kind of pissed off at me. It happens periodically, and I'll get a thump on the head when, I've pushed the limit and I've said too much. It used to be a lot more prevalent and aggressive behavior towards me. But now that a lot of this stuff is becoming more and more mainstream, I think their focus is just controlling certain types of information. So I'm sure that there'll be some pretty big, interesting things that may happen as a direct result of me talking about the children being rescued in the underground facilities, because that might have pushed the envelope just a little bit too much. But anyway, so I was going through this period where I was being heavily gang stalked. It lasted for like about 6 years. I think it ended like about 3 years ago. And it's another reason why I don't carry any GPS devices with me, especially if I'm going to go out and walk in nature, because I don't want them targeting me. I don't want to be targeted with microwave radiation or waves. I don't want to be targeted by other people. And what was happening is there was this one trail that I used to go to a lot with my dog in the morning. And it started to get to where there would be weird people there at the trailhead, like people that don't hike, people that you would never see at like even just a little small trailhead. And they would be like on their devices texting, and they'd be looking at me, and, they would be jiggy, and just, just looking at them made me uncomfortable. And so I, kept going to that trailhead because, more I was curious about what they wanted from me, what they were doing, if they were gang stalking other people or just me, just, trying to figure out what was going on. Even though, it kind of scared me. Now I change things up. I go at different times of a day. I go all over the place. I'm always constantly changing it up, and I don't take any devices with me, and I don't drive a car that has those devices on it. And because, you know, there are periods of my life that I want to be like left alone, you know, that I want to have like, you know, moments of peace, especially when I'm in nature and I'm looking at nature and soils and, you know, hiking and looking at plants and the plants' relationships to nature. I would really would like to just be kind of left alone. I'd like to just be kind of left alone, period, end of story. But one of the reasons I actually stopped like 3 years ago, actually going to this trailhead, is because I had one of those Men in Blackie experiences. And where I actually saw them like copy paste in here and copy paste out of here. And not only did I see one vehicle, but I saw two vehicles, one by air and one by land, do it. So, number one, I don't think that they wanted me at that area. Number two, I think that they didn't really want there were some things that I was involved in kind of exposing and in the involvement in some, you know, different things. And it was kind of like the period of my last push of moving into, you know, doing paperwork kind of avenues, from, you know, like a practicing sovereignty. I hate that word sovereign. I'm sovereign. I think it's more about I'm practicing sovereign, you know, I'm practicing, because, you know, just because you do paperwork and all this other stuff, are you living sovereign? You know, how are you living? But anyway, so back to the Men in Black story. But so I was at this trailhead, and there wasn't any gang stalkers there that day. So I was like, you know, my guard was down, you know, we're going on a good hike. There wasn't a lot of other people around, not on this trail that day, because it was pretty stormy. And so I started walking down, and we hiked down into the ravine, and then all of a sudden I hear this helicopter, you know, and I'm always have, you know, during this period of time, I tried to photograph stuff and I tried to videotape stuff. I don't do any of that stuff anymore because I don't even give them like the time of day. But what happened is that I hear this helicopter, and so I turn around to look at it. You know, I've got my tablet ready to take photos of it, you know, because I do research, you know, for a period of time for about maybe 7 years. I had heavy helicopters wherever I was. Didn't even matter. Just heavy, heavy, heavy. Fly over. Like I have, you know, video of, you know, like a sheriff's helicopter. I'm at a friend's house and literally flying around that apartment building like 20 times, circling it over and over and over again, you know, while I'm out on the patio watching it and videotaping it. And this kind of stuff just happened all the time. It doesn't happen as much now, because I think they have to use their resources for their really big problems, not their small problems. But anyway, so I was hiking down the ravine and I hear the helicopter coming, and, you know, I've got my tablet and everything ready, and I'm going to take pictures and video footage or whatever else. And it is so black, and it is like a really modern looking helicopter, like more modern than any helicopter I've ever seen. And it's pitch black, and it's shiny pitch black, and the windows are totally pitch black. You can't see into it. You can't see, and it's teeny. It's not super big, you know. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, you know, like the Men in Black have really stepped up here, you know, like they've got some, you know, new kind of equipment, and look at that. And I probably stood there and watched them, you know, they circled me like 4 times, and I took it as like, you know, you need to like, you know, back your little self off. And so then I just, you know, decided I wasn't going to photograph them or anything else. And so I just started continuing on the hike. And then I came around the edge, you know, because they kept circling me. And then when they flew off, I literally watched them like, go east and then just poof out, gone. Just like there was a screen there, and then they flew through that window and then back through the window. But I couldn't see on the other side of the window. I could only see the reality on this side. So kind of freaked me out. And I was like, maybe this is how they're getting in and out. Maybe they are copy pasting themselves. Maybe the sky is a computer system, and that, they generate whatever they want us to see onto that computer screen. And that there really isn't a sky, but they project one out there, making it look like one. I mean, the thing is, like, at this point, I know so much stuff about so many things, like, that just, it wouldn't even surprise me if that's what it is, right? It just wouldn't even, like, shock me. Actually, I expect it to be like that, because I had an experience when I was a young girl, about that, the sky being a TV screen. And I think it was kind of like a future thing, right? It was like a future thing that, like, I knew about. And I hate the word predictions, so I'm not even going to go there with that. But anyway, so then I, finished the hike. It's like an hour later. I get in my car, and right when I'm getting ready to pull out onto the main road from the trailhead, I start to pull out, and this SUV, shiny, more modern, pitch black, windows are pitch black, comes flying by me and, like, almost cuts me off pulling out. And then when I get on the road and I notice it, then I start hightailing it, except for, a van does not turn on a dime. Okay. And I have to go down this really curvy road going downhill, where it's a switchbacky kind of, not super switchbacky, but I can't see around some of the bends. And so I'm going as fast as I can. And by the time I get to the end of it, to the main, highway area, it's gone. It has completely disappeared as well. So I believe that this is what they're doing, kind of like in the Hunger Games, where, oh, you need medicine, well, we'll throw it in there. Oh, we'll create this, animal to come and eat you and attack you. And I think that they do it to terrorize us and keep us in fear, because I do believe that there are a lot of extraterrestrials and extraterrestrial hybrids that eat humans, like human. The hybrids, eat humans. And then they've taught humans how to cannibalize and ritual sacrifice humans for blood or whatever else, right? Um, and so I think that there's a lot of that going on. And so why wouldn't we be in some kind of, televised reality, that they control? Because I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the heaven experience is, a tractor beam, like a UFO abducting you, and that they give you whatever kind of computer experience that you want or you need to be subdued, so that they can, capture you and put you in an electronic cell and just wait for the right time to, send you back in. So instead of incarnating you, they're decarnating you, because every time you go in, you lose more and more life force of your energy field, and you are more and more traumatized. You're not really becoming more and more enlightened. All right, so Lenny is here, and I'm going to bring him on just to say hi and chat with him by himself. And so let me just communicate with him. Okay, let me add him, and let's see, we'll get him on here. All right, that way you guys will have somebody else to listen to. Hey, Mr. Lenny, are you there? Oh, he's still trying to get on. Righty, calling Lenny. Oh,
hello.
Hey, Mr. Lenny, how are you?
Pretty good. I was listening to you on TuneIn app, and I guess there was a delay in time.
Yeah, yep. I think there's a delay in time for sure. Oh, well, do you want to talk about some of the things I was talking about? I'm having a morning where I'm, talking about things that don't always get talked about on my show.
Yeah, you were talking about the dimensionality of things, and how sometimes when you're in an area, you get more reading about what's going on in that area from the surroundings. Pretty neat stuff.
But the veil this way.
Oh, there's Mona in the background.
Dimensional realms are all fabrics of vibrations, and that what you're saying is real true, Bridgette.
Yeah. Well, and there's layers of them depending on where you're at.
And each dimension has probably a whole different setup of layers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I know.
supposedly the fifth dimension doesn't have the materialistic dimension here. And if it's covered over in something material like pavement, it's not there.
Well, yeah, this is the thing is, so one of the people who trained me, so I spent a year when I was 23 years old, and she was a very powerful Lakota Sioux medicine woman, and she worked in only energetic fields, and I trained with her for like a year, and she taught me how to work within what we call, I mean, you see it everywhere, the geometrical pattern or structure of 64, right? So I
Right.
call it the 64 dimensional layer. And what was interesting is that when I work with people and do shamanism work, I go into these different layers to look around because sometimes they have diseases and certain things just that need to be shut off and one of those layers or needs to be turned on in a different layer. And it's
Right.
interesting because things I've seen in those different layers in people, like for example, I was told, while I was in, because I look at it like a skyscraper, you got lower levels, right? And then you've got, if we're supposedly operating on the third dimension, we're on the third floor, which is the walk-in floor. And then you've got the ones that are like above. And so I was working with this one being one time and they were talking about how that there can be 350 components in a 64 dimensional layered field that deal with your physical liver while you're in 3D. And so
Right.
you're having problems with your liver, so you have to go out and you have to figure out, well, where are the problems? Where do the problems lie? What's going on? Kind of a thing. And so it's a trip. And then in the first 8 layers, you actually have weapons. You have different kinds of weapons, but it's sad because usually people actually use these weapons to punish themselves,
Right.
instead of actually using them to protect themselves and their fields and whatever else, what they were there meant for.
Well, and I bet each chakra has its own level of many fields too.
Well, yeah,
Just the body part.
right. The main thing of the chakra, though, the energy that it's more, multi-dimensional, the baseline of it is that it's a power generator. So, when you have a generator, you fill it with gas and then you pull the string and it runs. It will power anything that you have that's electrical, right? Well, that's the chakra, the energy of the chakra. Each one of them are mini generators that actually generate power into the field. Um,
Right.
and some people's, obviously don't work. Some people's overwork, and then,
Well,
it's about getting them in balance.
there's so many entities out there that are sucking off our power that we don't even recognize. That might be the whole conundrum too.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the problem is that we're not aware
Right.
and conscious enough of our moment to moment life to be able to feel or pay attention. Recently, I was working with this Peruvian lady who grew up really wealthy Peruvian. She lives here in the US, but she never was involved with a lot of the native stuff, and the shamanism type stuff. And so I've been working with her, with some of that stuff. And it's interesting. I got her started on a pendulum, how to read energy around her house and then give her ideas on like how to fix things a little bit and change things. And now it's funny because I'll say, okay, let's step over to this part of your house and feel what that feels like. And then she'll step there and she'll ask me, she goes, well, what does it feel like? And I'm like, it feels dense. I said, did you push a lot of energy over here? And she said, I did. And I said, did you push this out? And she said, no, I didn't. So I said, so it's collected here. And so she's starting to be able to get to where she can actually feel it. You know what I mean? Instead of
Right.
before starting with the pendulum, trying to read it outside of herself, now she can step. She's learning how to step. And wherever she steps, she can pick up the energy that's going on there, which helps to start to be in your own body and figure out what energies are touching you or in you or going around you or talking to you.
Right. Well, it's almost like the gazing. You got to unfocus to see the stuff because so many people focus so tight that they miss so much of the good etheric that is out there in our favor.
Yeah, and then, it's going from scrutiny medicine to, a higher perspective. So you have scrutiny is like mouse medicine or rat medicine,
Right,
those
right,
kinds of
right.
where you're just stuck there in the smallness of it all. And then you have like hawk medicine, an eagle medicine that can take you, the furthest above it to get like an aerial view and a larger kind of understanding.
Well, it was nice gabbing at you, honey. I didn't realize you were on until Lenny told me because I got to go get ready for my show. But you two are welcome to join me.
we
We
might,
need
we might. Yeah, we might. We might need a carryover into the next show, right?
right. All we'd have to do is get the listeners to change from Studio A to Studio B.
Exactly. On the Adventures of a Feral Hippie at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which will be, I think, right up when I get off.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting how that works?
yeah. No, I love my little RR community. I love them a lot.
The last 2 days when I've been doing the show with Mona, we've had Mitchell from Revolution Radio being the audio man with us. And he came on yesterday and participated in the discussion. And I think we do really a lot better with three-person discussions because that third opinion can validate both of the perspectives of the two people who are the main protagonists.
Yeah.
So,
So check it. Yeah. No, I'm just gonna push this. Damn. Because Lenny knows all these people too. Like the tarts, the
yeah,
darts, the tarts. So a tarting we will go. A tarting we will go. So I've got them. I've got the group of tarts. Um,
and
and
the
they're coming on.
Targaryens have a
Yeah.
new interpretation of history.
Yeah.
And
So
I really believe that now that I'm reading the Legends of King Arthur and going back to T.H. White's 1937 book, that there's a lot of symbols that are Tartarian in that book that I would have never caught the reference if the guys hadn't informed me as to what's going on.
yeah.
So it's not only that it was hidden in such a way that there were other stories on top of the stories that we needed to know. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the star fortresses work because I think the term fortress is a military overlay. And I don't think they were forts as opposed to forts that were sort of the precursor of industry for generating power and moving things around. And
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that they said was that when they were on my show, last week or 2 weeks ago, was that they think that they were like dispensaries, right? Like gas stations. So things would land on them. They could either land on them and they could fill them up, filling stations, or they could drive up to it and they could get filled with whatever power or energy. They were talking about gas, like could have been like a natural gas kind of a thing.
well, water could have been used for hydroelectric
Yeah.
energy with way better flow capabilities than we think about now.
Well, but they did have that, right? They around the star forts, they did have water. They had
Yes,
water circles around them, right? So they were using that too.
right. And what I'm saying is that that was very important to the function of the city to have that flowing water circulating the city, not only for power and for sewage, but to really make it so that the water was part of the life. And I think if there's anything I've noticed recently, it's that most people are very, very detached from their water and not at all comfortable with water. They don't drink water; they drink soda pop or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, so I've been experimenting with these rocks. Well, because, I'm a big biodynamic girl. So we're all about the stirring of the medicine, binding it to water, right? Structuring it. So I got this weird crystal that was um, a friend of mine got for me, like untouched or whatever. I don't take a lot of this stuff, but I wanted to experiment with it in water. So I put it in a glass of water because, Valeti, Uvarov, who is a Russian guy who's talking about this technology he's building, with crystal pyramid grids and that it changing the structure of the water kind of stuff. But anyway, so I did a practice of that, and it's so weird to watch people like look at it. Well, what's that? Well, it's a crystal in water. Well, what's it there for? Because I'm experimenting. I'm experimenting to see if I have it in a glass of water, on my computer, if it works better or if it works better just by itself. And what I found is that the crystal actually likes the water and that it works better if it's in water, like if it's covered by water.
I refresh my crystals every year or so down by the river by just setting them in the river and letting the water flow over them for an hour or two. And I've only walked away from the crystals once and forgotten about them, and then gotten back and found that they were indeed still where I left them. But I definitely think that the resonance frequencies of crystals are used to attune the consciousness of people, and that most of the crystals exclude water, and the water can read the crystal and adopt a memory flow, because silica quartz is the same sort of stuff they put into the chips that are used to carry data in the computers.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And they put them in
water
bombs and all kinds of stuff.
water is a has the same electronic configuration as silica when it's in the what was the state Pollock called it? The He had a term for it, but the state of where water excludes everything, exclusion zone water. And once you've excluded everything except the water, each water molecule bonds to its nearest neighbors, and the lattice is the same as the silica in every semiconductor. Back when I was making the Ormus gold, silica was one of the major components of what we were doing, because it's the silica structure that keeps the individual gold atoms apart from each other to make atomic. And so Ormus is orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements that have a different structure than the chemistry in college might teach people, but that structure makes them more interactive with a group of compounds called free radicals. And right now, our society seems to have this war on free radicals going. So, all good. The idea of having chemistry as a backdrop for interpreting life in a different form than economics has led me to the idea that if we can just create some balanced equations of exchange between ecosystems and human scale people, and then between human scale people and corporate scale people, that maybe we can get the balance back in the whole part of nature and instantly restore a lot of the losses that have come from industrial disease, which I think is orders of magnitude greater than climate change as an effect on the world.
Yeah, hold on a second. I just wanted to type Mona asked, her lady had a question. Yeah, so anyway, let me write this down. I wanted to talk about the hold on a second. All right, there we go. Okay, so I want to talk about like um, one of the most amazing plants. Like I have two of them that one I've been deeply in love with for a really long time because yeah, I had a relationship with it when I was a little kid, kind of as a puzzle. And then when I went to biodynamics school, I learned a lot more about horsetail. And then I went to anthroposophy plant medicine courses, and then I learned a whole different kinds of applications for horsetail. And then recently I started making horsetail medicine for humans. So before I was doing it for plants, and then I learned. So horsetail it's an interesting thing because in North America, it is the reason I'm talking about this is because it has the silica component, right? It does have silicon as well, but one of the big components of horsetail and how it utilizes water is with silica. So horsetail comes in, there's three forms of horsetail. One's like a long standing greenish blackish. It looks like a snake standing straight up. And then the other part of horsetail is called the pine horsetail, which sort of looks like a pine tree. But horsetail is a dinosaur plant. They say that it's some of them are up to 300 million years old. They're like some of the oldest plants in North America, right? And it doesn't have like most plants, it doesn't have photosynthesis. It doesn't have leaf-based photosynthesis where the plant takes in light and then it helps with the water and helps to traffic information. Sunlight helps it to grow. It's an energy. It's a nutrient for the plant. Actually helps to generate electricity in the plant. It helps with the positive and negative charge in the plant, the electricity, the electrical and neurological parts of the plant. But in horsetail, what horsetail does, because it doesn't have the photosynthesis ability, it has an older one. And what it does is it pulls up silica out from under the ground. And you'll notice that horsetail grows where the ground is moist or along river banks because, it has the silica water relationship. And so what horsetail does is it pulls up silica from underground, and then it also holds, a lot of water. And then in the morning time or when it needs a photosynthesis type experience, it will bead water, little beads of water all over it that have a bunch of silica in it. So it takes it from being like one leaf as one mirror for the sun and the photosynthesis to a teeny little bead of water that can have thousands of mirrors in it, right? To be pulling in what I call a silent nutrient, which is sunlight. Sunlight is not talked about as a nutritional component, and it's like one of the baseline nutritional components for life on Earth, life for a lot of things on Earth. And so what it does is that when it gets done pulling in all the sunlight that it needed, then the plant sucks back up its little beads of water and the silica and pulls all that sunlight back into itself. And it is like the coolest thing ever. I mean, is that the coolest thing ever? I just
It
think it's
certainly is. And the language that we use in this area where we're talking about silica is the component that's the same stuff as in glass. It's an SiO2 or actually an SiO3 2- charge lattice. Whereas silicon is an element, and that is the basis around which oxygens are bound in the molecule. And then silicone is a polymer that I don't know why it's named like that, but it certainly confuses people all the time when they hear these words being dropped. But there's definitely an element that is there that's part of the way elements work, and also a compound, silica, that functions as really glass in many ways. And so you have your quartz crystals made of silica, you have glass made of silica, you have ion exchange resins and things made of silica. And the silica provides a lattice structure that has pores of a certain size that lets some materials through and other materials not through. But it's also got an interconnectivity with the exchange of electrons. And so I'm starting to think that the whole of science has made up a whole lot of funky words from words that used to mean something else. And that when we start hearing the language talked of as science, that we're looking at words that we're speaking as scientists that are not in the same general use form as the language that we're currently have in the society. So it's one of those things that causes a lot of confusion. And it just seemed to me that when you were talking about the horsetails, I knew you were talking about the collective lattice of silica. And from our previous talk on it, I wasn't sure about the element anymore. Go ahead.
Nope, all good.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that what high school chemistry has become so watered down conceptually that people learn a little bit about the language of chemistry, and it's too complicated to actually learn deeper, and so that what remains with them. But you don't get the concepts of chemistry until after you've learned the language of chemistry. And right now, there's not many people going deep down that rabbit hole, when I think it's one of the most important rabbit holes that we need to go down in terms of natural resources.
Yeah.
And
Well, I totally use it chemistry. Like I don't, I'm not educated in chemistry. I learned a lot from you, but I use a lot of alchemy and chemistry in soil rebuilding and also using plants in different, ways to actually help heal like environments using their chemistries and what they have. Like, the thing is like so basically with the silicon that the that would be in, I just kind of want to reiterate this really quick, just so I can get my mind straight on it, because it was a very kind of interesting thing that you said, that the silicon has a relationship to oxygen, and I'll have you actually explain that better. So what I'm hearing is that I mean, for water, areas of water, horsetail would be ideal to help to rebuild the water, right? Because of the silica, it can help to bring in sunlight to that water, which can help rebuild it. And also the oxygen. So the horsetail would actually be helping with the oxygen issues as well, right? So basically, horsetail is like the major structural medicine plant. Would you say, or would you not say?
I would say it's definitely a major structural medicine plant of all wetland areas. That what it does is it allows the water to be a communicator of the structure of the silica. And since water naturally in its own form has a same structure, which we call isoelectronic. So if you imagine the water as an oxygen with two hydrogens pointing out in one direction, the silica you can imagine as a silicon with two oxygens, just like the oxygen with two hydrogens. So the shape of it has that same 109-degree angle, and the placement of the things we call electrons are all in the same substructure units. And so I think both quartz, silica, and water form these lattices that are the carriers of information, and the DNA is like the storage of information. But right now, I'm not believing what I'm hearing about DNA because it doesn't make sense in terms of what I know, and they're neglecting a whole half of the science when everything is done in light versus when the same things are done thermally. Because when you have a thermal reaction, everything heats up at the same rate. But when you have a light-based reaction, it's totally directional. So the top of a leaf doesn't look anything like the underside of a leaf because one's in a has the light available and the other has the dark available. So there are dark reactions and light reactions that get catalyzed, and that's all part of the oxidation and reduction of how the actual air works. So it might be interesting to go down a pathway where we talk about what we actually have going on in the air in chemical terms, but it's probably too late in this show to start such a discussion.
Right. Okay, so the explain the silicon part again that horsetail has in the oxygen thing.
Okay. The silicon is an element that is absolutely necessary to make the silica in the horsetail. But the process of the biochemistry of horsetails leaves you with this molecule that is a central silicon and then three distinct oxygens, each one bonded to that silicon, and a lone pair, so that the whole lattice goes silicon, oxygen, and alternates. And so a quartz lattice is all symmetry shaped to be the same as it is for passing information in a silica chip, just by the nature of what the crystal is. Now, depending on the impurities of the crystal, whether it's a quartz crystal or an amethyst crystal or a different type of mineral, the minerals have different chemical compositions, so they have different wavelengths that they communicate in. And you can use some forward-looking infrared spectroscopy to define what those wavelengths are. We detect a lot of them just by color and color reflection. But when you actually get to looking into crystals, most of the color arises from defects and impurities in the crystal and not from the lattice itself. And so the lattice is all symmetrical all over the place, and the different elements that are included in the lattice break the symmetry.
Okay, so I could use I could use horsetail in environments uh, as not only a database for soil and compost microbial information, but I could also use it to transfer that information
Yeah, the water
into the
would be
environment.
a next. Yeah, the water would be the carrier of the information from the silica lattice that it was formed into the other physical beings, plants, animals, microbes, whatever we're talking about, such that those silica get developed into organelles and other functions that the larger being incorporates part of the crystalline structure. And horsetail, being a very old plant, doesn't have to work with complicated different chemistries. Its chemistry is real easy, but it's one of the few plants that is based on silica. And so silica
So
is not common in plants.
so basically it's I'm just, putting this all together because, people hate horsetail. People attack horsetail. It's an amazing nutrient. for your body, like the things that it does for your body with your tendons and ligaments and, you know, those types of tissues and, you know, bone and everything, your teeth, hair. It's pretty significant. I made tincture from it this year, and then I cut a whole bunch for, you know, making tea out of because it's so significant. But basically, what we've just said is that um, if we visualize a clear quartz crystal, right? Uh, crystal shard or whatever, um, that it the plant expression of that is the horsetail. It's literally a crystal, like a crystal that looks like a plant, but it's like a standing crystal with all the components.
I would think that the crystal that is built within the plant is a fractal of the larger crystal that you might imagine on our scale. It has the same density, it looks the same, it just doesn't have as much volume or number of atoms in it.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the nature of the chemical bonding, silica bonds to silica very well, and it has a 2 minus charge. And then, like calcium and magnesium, have 2 plus charge. And so, teeth, which are mostly calcium based, probably silica is one of the best things for cementing the calcium and the teeth together. It wouldn't surprise me if you did a chemical analysis on parts of the body and found that teeth had more silica than some of the other parts.
Yeah, there's been some studies in Poland where they've used horsetail for treatment of osteoporosis. They've done studies on it where it's done really good job to actually heal, you know, the thinning bone. I mean, it just, the thing is like, it just, now you know why I love horsetail. Like, I have this never ending love story with horsetail and all the things that it can be used for. And now after this conversation, now I worship horsetail, you know, and now I have all these different applications that I can use it in to actually help heal and restore land. And just think about making a spray out of it, you know, like I could make a separate horsetail compost to just compost horsetail to use it as a spray to infuse all this into the landscape. Anyway,
Yes.
because you know we use the fermented horsetail uh, preparation for spraying on plants and to get rid of mold and funguses that you know are unwanted on plants, and it works really successfully. And topically, that I learned from anthroposophy plant medicine courses is that you can actually take a horsetail tea, cook it down, make a tea out of it, an infusion. You don't want to over and cook the fresh plant. And so it releases, and then you can get dried horsetail, and you can do this as well. And then you let the water cool, put it in, well, as soon as you get it cooked down, put it into jars, let it set, cool. And then you can use compresses on eczema and psoriasis, which are basically mold growing on the skin. You know, it just hasn't sprouted a stem into a plant form, but the stuff that's on there, the eczema and the psoriasis, are the root systems that the mold has learned to adapt into to create on the outside of the body. So you can use the horsetail, you know, stuff for that as well. Because we're just a compost, you know, all these living organisms, we're moist and warm. We're like the perfect condition for anything to sprout and grow in us and outside of us.
Well, a compost is nothing more than a solvent of soil.
Well,
And
that's what our
soil
bodies are,
itself
right?
is the solvent, just like water is the solvent for a lot of things. And so water is a major component to the compost. It all passes
Oh,
information.
all right. Well, we're at the end of the show. Looks like we're going to be on Mona's show in Studio A. Thanks, Lenny, for coming on. Carrying Stones and Digging Holes, radio show, Wednesday edition. Thanks so much for showing up, everybody. Bye.